Hi everybody, this is Tanya Sherba with our Product Management Service Management Automation, and welcome to the Release Readiness webinar for the 2018-05 release, and specifically for SMAX. And this is the first of two sessions. So, quick moment of discussion about the Release Readiness webinars themselves. So we've been doing this for a while now, actually, with all of our releases, and it's really a series, or sometimes one, but usually 2 or 3 webinars to help customers prepare for the upcoming release. And they're targeted at 2 sets of people, the business owners, so that they can understand the business owner of the application, so that they can understand what's being introduced and then start to consider it and do that forward-looking planning for when and how to adopt the feature. But then also the technical practitioners, so understanding the details of the offering and some implementation considerations. Typically, we do an overview session for both the business owner and the technical practitioner, and that's where we are today. And then we have 1 or more release topic drill downs, and that's more specifically for the technical practitioner and get into some of the implementation considerations. So today is the introduction for the release. Now, for those of you on SMA-SM or interested in SMA-SM, the Release Readiness webinar is on May the 17th. Today, we're going to go through the release highlights really quickly, and then I'm joined by Ankit and Steve, who are 3 of us will go through some demonstrations, but discussions and slides for the new features. There's time at the end for Q&A, but of course, log your questions throughout, and we'll attempt to answer them. Make sure that you change the status of who you're sending the message to, not me privately, but the group, because I won't be monitoring during the meeting, and then we'll have a couple of housekeeping slides at the end. So let's talk about the May release. Once again, we have a really exciting release here for this quarter, and there are 4 key themes, and I'm going to talk about them briefly before we get into the details. The first major theme to talk about is SMAX Studio. So quite often our customers have a need to augment the out-of-the-box applications with maybe a non-IT process or an HR process, for example, or a marketing or facilities kind of help desk scenario. And with SMAX Studio, they can now do that in a codeless way. So an entirely codeless way, create new process-based applications. Steve's going to walk us through that, and also some of the enhancements to the configuration in general. The next major theme is service portal aggregation, and we're introducing this as a controlled availability feature, as you see by that little footnote, and we'll talk more in a moment about what that means. But the service portal aggregation is for customers who have multiple deployment engines or multiple catalogs and need a way to have a single self-service portal for all of those services, independent of where they're fulfilled, but also the way to manage those so that they can report on them and measure the service levels. And that's what aggregation is about in general. Specifically for this release, we're looking at aggregating the service management services into the SMAX portal. The next theme is enterprise readiness, or some more deployment flexibility and options. So in terms of deployment flexibility, we know that SMAX is fully containerized and available on-premise or AWS, and we already have customers adopting both. And now with this release, we're adding Azure cloud deployment as an option. That was a beta in our last release, and now is fully productized. And we're also continuing to realize the benefits of the ITOM platform, and we'll talk about some of the enhancements to our update process. And then the last theme here is IT asset management. We're introducing a new application for procurement, which complements our existing contract and vendor capabilities. So now we have the ability to create vendor catalogs, create the PO, and then receive those items. And that, of course, is tied to the request process, and that's the demonstration that we're going to see a little bit later. So for your reading pleasure, a little later, there's all of the features and capabilities under these key themes, but that's actually what we're going to get into next here. So let's get into the actual demonstrations and discussion. And I'm going to start actually with procurement before I hand it over to Steve. And as I mentioned, the procurement is a new application area for SMAX and allows customers to track and manage IT purchasing information. So I'm actually going to run a little demonstration for you here rather than walk through the slide. And if I have got this set up right, I will start here. Now, our product manager for this area is Leo, and he's not available today because he's traveling. So I'm going to do my best to represent him here with this demonstration. So I'm just going to click play, and somebody interrupt me if it's not being shown correctly. But you see here in the menu, there's a new application for procurement. And under the procurement area is the ability to create a catalog for the vendor, and then we can also separately look at their catalog items, the purchase orders, and then receive them. We have a vendor in here, Hewlett-Packard, and some of you may know this company, and creating a quick catalog for the vendor Hewlett-Packard. We have just three catalog items in here, but of course this is where you're going to represent everything that's provided from this vendor. And if we take a look at this specific catalog item, which is for a certain type of laptop, we can see the association to an asset model, things like the list price, where it belongs in the catalog, and the ability then to publish this as an offering. And that's what the demonstration goes through next here. So from the catalog, we create a new offering. This is where this is familiar to you. You know how to create offerings in the catalog itself and tie it to an existing service definition. And then, of course, put in any of the remaining details for the offering. What we do here in this demonstration is we're going to go over to the offering just to show you that all of the relevant information from the vendor catalog line has come into this offering. So we'll take a look at that. So this is the one that was created from the vendor catalog item and brought over, obviously, the asset model information and the service, the things that we defined, and also the price information. So it's just a quick sort of check on that. But the real power, of course, of the offering is in the task plan. And nothing new here in terms of the way that we create task plans, except that we have added a new out-of-the-box rule for creating a purchase order. So we're just setting that up here very simply. And of course, this is all done based on existing rules that we're providing out of the box. And we say, okay. Now, this is a really simple task plan to create the purchase offering, but what we would probably do is when the request comes in is have it checked to see if that asset is already in stock, and if it is, we can create a reservation for it. You know how to do that from the out-of-the-box rules, but in this demonstration we're assuming that it's not in stock, and then it's going to create the purchase order. So here in self-service we have created a request for this particular laptop type. And when we go over to the service request area, I'm just going to change the filter to show the request that we just created and see that how we go through the fulfillment into the purchase order. So this particular demonstration doesn't default in the service desk group names. So we're going to take a moment to do that, but we're saying, yes, of course, the offering is the laptop that we've just created. The offering for shows our pricing, etc. And when we go into the task plan, we haven't started that purchase order yet. It's not running. Now, again, you might go through a reservation process first before you decide to create a purchase order. But for this demonstration, we'll go right to the purchase ordering. So we go in and select the service desk group and then the expert group. But again, you might use something like the routing or intelligent suggestions to do that automatically. And we save it, and then now that's going to execute the task plan. And when we go into that tab, well, actually first up top here, we can see that we've already progressed the workflow into this phase, and that the purchase order itself has been completed. So now over to the new purchasing application. This is really the new area of the May release. So if we look at the purchase order list itself, we can see that a new purchase order has been created, obviously in the new phase. So we'll take a look at that, and of course all of the information that you would expect to be defaulted from, copied over from the offering has been, and that there is a new purchase line. Now, that may be enough, but quite likely you need to go in and add some additional purchase orders lines, or maybe change the quantity before this is sent over to the vendor. And so that's what we're going to do here. So we're looking for this catalog item, and can change the quantity from 1 to 5, and of course that's going to update the cost. So set 2,000 now. If we put in 5, it's just going to do a simple calculation there. Save it, because that's what it is that we want to order. And now we will take a look at the purchase order line, because that's important when it comes to receiving them. Back to the workflow for the purchase order. So it's in the new phase. We're ready to issue it. We've confirmed that that is the number of laptops that we want to order. So we're going to go ahead and issue it and save it. From here, we would then create a report that then goes over to the vendor, or maybe providing it to them in an electronic fashion. The new offering in the May release also, you would imagine, includes the ability to receive those lines, and just show that quickly here in this demonstration. And I apologize for the visibility on the screen. We went into a different demo. It's a little bit fuzzy, but hopefully you get the idea that when we're in this receipt process, we're taking our purchase order lines and saying, are they going into a stock room, or perhaps you're putting them directly into use, depending upon whether you were ordering the 1 or 5. And here we're going to go through the laptops and enter serial numbers, and we just do that again, just the typical process of receiving goods. And now those assets will be available again, either for stock or to be assigned to that user that made the initial request. And with that, I will pause the demonstration and go back to the slides. So the purchasing, again, this ability to create vendor catalogs and catalog items and publish them as service orders, create and manage that overall purchase order in terms of its life cycle, and then to receive those goods is all part of the new capabilities in the May release, complementing the vendor and contract items that we have. This is, and at least on my screen, it's a little bit off the screen here, but this is a new capability that's available with the SMA Premium license. Okay, Steve, I will turn that over to you for Studio.
Okay, thank you. Are you going to pass me the ball?
Can I do that? Let's see.
If you stop sharing, I will start sharing.
Oh, okay. That would be.
That way I can go into my later demo.
Oh, okay. Just find a stop.
All right, I should be sharing now.
I'm
seeing my share.
I am.
All right, perfect. All right, so SMAX Studio. So Studio is our complete development toolkit that you use to create new applications or extend the existing ones. So prior to this release, we really only allowed you to extend the existing modules or applications of SMAX. With this release, we're introducing the capability for you to create your own. This is an integral part of SMAX, and therefore, when you extend or create your new application, it's going to inherit all of the capabilities of our SMAX platform. In particular, it's the codeless configuration. So hopefully you can see my cursor here. So codeless extensibility. So you're going to be building a new application, a new module, using the same codeless capabilities that you're used to. And therefore, it's also going to inherit the ability to have the seamless updates, just like the other modules. So this is, as I mentioned, you're able to extend and go beyond what you've been able to do before. So we're going to be able to support all services, not just the IT module capabilities, instant problem change. If there's a new process that you need to support, you'll be able to build that in the tool. And because it's using our codeless configuration capabilities, it's designed for IT and line of business process owners to do a lot of the work and allow you to be more efficient in how you roll out new capabilities to your organizations. Advance here. So when we've been looking at Studio, we've been really considering 3 main use cases for how we expect customers to be using this. And each of these has a different focus area and different needs, a lot of overlap between them, but different levels of importance on certain capabilities. So the first one is the ability to create new user-defined process-based applications. So if you have a process that you would like to automate in the tool, and it is an incident management or change management or one of the ones that we've already built and developed in the tool, you can now go in, you can create a new record type, and I have another slide that will kind of go through the steps there, so I'll just leave it at that. Another use case that we looked at is supporting tables. So we have lists in the system, and lists can be used to define a number of possible values, and that can be used in another process like incident management or tying back into use case 1, one that you have defined before. But there are limits in terms of how many values you can have in lists, and this release, you'll be able to create a supporting table and link that into an existing process or a new one that you've created. And that would allow you to have a much longer list of values for somebody to choose from. Potentially, that supporting table could have its own workflow and lifecycle for the records that exist there as well. And then the third use case is really just expanding our codeless configuration capabilities. So use cases 1 and 2, and also the just extending the out-of-box applications that we provide as part of the tool uses our codeless configuration features. There's always new things to add there. So one of the things that we're doing in this release is extending the capabilities of custom actions to allow you to not only make URL calls through the custom action capability, but actually launch or trigger the workflow and run business rules within the tool based on those custom actions. So, and that's important for supporting use cases 1 and 2, being able to add those kind of capabilities in a new process application. However, it's also very valuable on the existing one. So that's an example of expanding our codeless configuration. So just a few screenshots here to maybe help explain what I was trying to talk about in words. So if you want to create a new application, so create a new application. Your first step is going to be to use the field area. So you create a table, you link it into the menu structure, and then you would define your fields. So here we show the vulnerability response table that was created, and you can see a list of fields here. After you've created your table, you can create the forms that are needed to display it. So here's our forms designer, the one you should be used to. You create, and then after that, you can create your new workflow and the business rules that are tied to it. You can define business rules at all of the levels that you would expect. So at the phase, transition, meta phase, process, or workflow, or at the table level where they always apply. Once you have done that, your new app is ready to use, and you expose it to your end users or your agents, and they can go in and create records, move them through the workflow. So lots of details behind that. This is just a quick introduction to the concept of Studio, if you weren't familiar with it from beta activities in the last release. And there's a lot to show here in terms of the details, and that will be covered in our Release Readiness Part 2 coming up in 2 weeks. But feel free to ask any questions, and when I get off presenting, I'll go and look in the chat and try to respond. All right. Being new capability, something that's been one of the top requested ERs on Service Anywhere and therefore on SMAX. And I'm going to skip the slide and I'm going to go straight into a demo. So let me see if I can accomplish that. So hopefully you're now seeing a SMAX screen. So I'm on the dashboard. So user options. User options, everybody I hope is aware of them, but just in case, let's go and look at an offering. So we have the request a new PC offering, and you'll see we have a number of user options that are defined for that. So selecting the PC type, whether you want external monitor, external battery, urgent request. This is information that is specific to this offering. Any request that is created from this offering is going to have these extra fields added to it. This is important information if I'm looking at what's going on in terms of all of the requests related to people asking for new PCs. And with this release, we're adding a lot of, adding the ability to really work with this data in reports and grids. So let's go see how this looks. So those are the user option fields. Let's see here, switch to my next screen. So here we are on the requests grid, and you'll notice that I have filtered to the offering request a new PC. So now I'm seeing all my requests, active ones, that are tied to the offering that we looked at. Now when I go ahead and I do additional filtering, you'll see I get access to these user option fields. So if I want to say, you know what, I really only want to see the requests for the high performance PC, I can go ahead and do that filtering now. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. I'm going to drop this here. You'll also notice that I've added the select PC user option here on the grid. So if I come in here to columns and I select a field, I can see, all right, how many of them have asked for an external monitor. Add it. That should show it up here. So we see that only one of these high performance asked for an external monitor. I can also group by this. So if I only want to see my travel friendly ones, only want to see my high performance ones, I can use the grouping capability to do that. So you can do it, you can use those user option fields in columns and in filters. You must first filter to an offering. You must first filter to an offering. However, you can also use this in reports. And if you looked closely at the first screen I had up, let me see if I can get back there. Not. All right, here we go. This is my dashboard. You'll see I have PC requests by type, and you'll see that this is split. So I have 3 high performance PC requests and 3 travel friendly PC requests. Let's go in and look at the report definition so you can see how that is used. So when I went ahead and created a report ahead of this, I filtered to the offering, which is required in order to then access the user option fields. And then I selected, I decided to group it by the select PC. I could add an additional group on here if I wanted to for any of the other fields. I could also say, you know what, I really want to filter to a particular value. So say I only want the travel friendly ones. And then if I save it, it's going to obviously change and then look kind of silly. But you get the idea, and then I can change this one and see how many have the external monitor or anything. So really just gives you a lot more access to that user option data within the tool. And with that, Ankit, I think you can take over the sharing.
Absolutely. Johnny, you're going to share your screen back?
I am. Yep.
Give me okay.
There. Okay.
Great. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Ankit, and I'm going to go through a couple of topics on enterprise readiness and as well as some of the update process changes that we have upcoming for our May release. So the first one in the list is really about InPlace upgrade or update for the SMA suite. This really talks about, or one of the key things that we did in this release is we are releasing a new InPlace update process, which will allow our customers, or which will allow the both flavors of the suite SMAX and SMASM to be updated in place, okay, without the need of any additional hardware, and at the same time with minimal downtime. Okay, so we are actually releasing a rolling update feature for our SMA suite. So there's a bunch of one of the key things that we did in this release is we actually are releasing rolling updates based on service dependencies. Okay, so that means this is an example on the right side that you see on the screen here, that as you can imagine, we have a lot of services running across the board for the suite. Okay, and many of these services are interdependent on each other for purposes of running, right? And then what we do is we actually, when during the update process, we start top down and we work our way through looking at the service dependencies. Okay, so in this example that you're seeing here, we'll start with the ingress controller being the first set of service, which is the primary service through which on which other services depend. Then we'll go ahead and update X runtime infra, IDM, CMDB, Smart Analytics, which will then update BO, which is our back office, and then the X runtime. So there's a bunch of things that we have. It's a very complex set of update services that we are running. But the key thing is it's a brand new way through which we are updating our suite going forward. So if you want to run or update your suite from, let's say, 2018.02 to 2018.05, the latest release, you will be able to use this in-place update of the suite. There's many steps actually, or there's some steps that will be involved in running this in-place update. But I should actually emphasize that this is all done with minimal downtime. Okay, so that means we're not expected to completely stop all the services for the suite. Some of the services will still be running while there is while the update is taking place in the back end. Okay. So and we are going to go into a lot more details in our next session for the release readiness, where I'm going to be presenting an actual demo on how the in-place service update framework works for this particular release. So the steps to update the CDF in the SMA suite are actually, there's at a high level there's 5 steps. The first thing obviously you will do is you need to back up your database in NFS, which is important just in case you need to roll back if something goes wrong, right? Then you will update your master nodes and worker nodes with the latest CDF. So in this case, when you're updating from 2018.02 to 2018.05, you will first update your master nodes and worker nodes to 2018.05. Okay, master nodes and worker nodes must be updated one by one, so that you're not putting the whole system under pressure, and you're not you're making sure that system components are still available while the upgrade is being done. Then you run through the suite update process. Okay, so it's based on UI. So you go to the UI for admin. You go to the admin UI for suite update. You would click on the update process, and then it would run the entire update process across all the worker nodes. It will take about 35 to 40 minutes, and after that the suite update will be completed. And the good thing is during that suite update, some of the services will be running, or a lot of the services will be running. So in fact, the experience from an end user perspective should be I would say seamless, and there will be some downtime obviously you need to account for, but it will not be any significant downtime. You'll need to run post-update process. It depends on the flavor of the suite you're running. For SMAX, the post-update process will be around migrating your tenants to the new environment, making sure your integration works with CMDB and all that stuff. So there's absolutely some post-update process. And then in case in case something goes wrong, you can always roll back. Okay, so we do provide you with the rollback scripts also. Okay, next slide. So this is at a high level the version update process. So what you would do is the first thing you would do is you would install CDF. Okay. Actually, even before you do that, you will test this whole update process in a test environment. You take a clone of the production environment, both for the CDF and the suite, and of course we provide you with the scripts to do that. Then you would update the CDF. So in the bottom of the slide, you'll see that the CDF is now updated from 2018.01 to 2018.04. And this is specifically for our upgrade from February release to the May release. Then you would do a suite update, and then you would run the post-update process in the test environment. Okay. That means in the test environment, you will have 2018.05 suite along with CDF 2018.05 actually. Okay. Now in production, what you would do is you would take a backup of the data. Okay, so it's very important step. So step number 6 is extremely important. So you need to make sure that the data is backed up in case things go wrong, right? So you need to make sure that things you don't lose your data. Then you would do a CDF update. You would do a suite update, step number 8, and then step number 10 you would do post update. And if of course if anything goes wrong, then you can of course restore the system back with the scripts that we provide. So that's at a very high level update process that we are releasing for the release. Obviously, there's a lot more details involved. I will be sharing more details on the update process during our next release readiness webinar, including demos of both CDF as well as the suite. Okay, this is at a high level duration and downtime on what we expect the upgrade process to take place and how much time will it take. So cloning, obviously, it depends on it depends on how much data you have and all that stuff, right? And obviously, it doesn't involve any downtime. But CDF, we expect it will take about 40 minutes per master node and 10 minutes per worker node in terms of duration. And the downtime will be, as I said, not everything will be down, so the system will still be available, especially when you're in an HA mode, when you have 3 master nodes. And if you're updating one of the master nodes, then the other 2 master nodes will be running, right? So the downtime will be minimal to even 0. And then you'll do a suite update. It takes about 30 to 60 minutes with some downtime around 30 minutes it should take. And then there's some post-update process. Obviously, these are just guidelines. Okay, and these are these are the downtimes and durations that we have seen in the lab environment. Things would be different depending on your infrastructure and the setup, and that's where we are. Okay, next slide. Okay, I think I covered this, but yes, we will be covering this topic in more details in the next session. Okay, let me go through more details on the enterprise readiness. So in this release, we made a lot of changes to the enterprise or improvements to the enterprise readiness. One of the key things that we did in this release is we are releasing Postgres, embedded Postgres HA for some of the mixed mode scenarios. Okay, so we know that some of our customers in the previous releases they had to run external Postgres database. Okay, for let's say for some of the scenarios like running the portal, and now in this release we are in the process of releasing embedded Postgres HA. Okay, for some of the mixed modes. When you need an external database for the portal, you would not need to deploy an external Postgres database. Okay, we will provide a Postgres HA inside the containers, and we will provide backup and restore capabilities. Okay. Next slide, Tanya. Okay, the other important change that we are doing in this release is we are providing an option for our customers and our partners to deploy SMAX on Azure. So now Azure Public Cloud is officially supported for deployment of SMAX, and we have tried to use as many native services for Azure as possible, including, of course, the virtual machines, virtual network, load balancer, as well as the network security group for Azure. And we also support enterprise readiness, which means HA is supported, as well as we have scripts for deployment automation. You will see here on this slide, the way it really works is in terms of architecture, is we have the traffic to the suite, which comes in via a Azure load balancer. And the first thing it does is it talks to the master nodes NSG, which is network security group, and it could talk to one of the 3 master nodes. And then we have a separate keep alive D component between worker nodes and master node that would actually do load balancing inside the suite. So the communication between master node and worker node will be going through a separate keep alive D component or ingress that we have within the suite, which acts as an internal load balancer. At the same time, for management purposes, we are at the bottom of the slide. You'll see that we provide a jump box. Okay, similar to how we have Bastion nodes. Okay, so we'll provide jump box to be able to manage the suite itself. And then for actual running of the suite in the production environment, we recommend our customers to use NetApp file storage, okay, and PostgreSQL VMs. Now, this is a key point where NetApp file storage is extremely important, and that's what we have certified in the lab environment. Because the suite contains some of the components which needs high performance I/O for storage, and the only storage option that we have been able to certify so far that will work with the suite is the external, it's a NetApp file storage, which is a premium storage, but that is what is certified in the lab. We will, since the suite needs PostgreSQL as a database, we will need to provide PostgreSQL as a as a database for the suite. Next slide, because in the next slide, what I want to do is we have listed some one of the things that, going back to Azure, actually, I forgot one thing. So one of the things on Azure is we want to, for the PostgreSQL database, okay, we will be using an external VM for the SQL for Postgres database. That means that we will not be using the Postgres native service that Azure provides due to performance reasons. And we'll go through in a lot more detail over the next couple of release readiness webinars, and you'll see a lot more details in our documentation, but I just wanted to lay that out. Okay, next slide, Tanya. So for AWS, as you know, the suite already provides deployment on AWS, and we provide deployment on AWS in number of modes that we support. That also includes availability on the AWS Marketplace for running the suite. We have various cloud formation scripts for AWS that are already available. And then at the same time, we also support manual deployment of the suite on AWS. Okay, so we also provide a lot of guides and documentation and even some scripts to manually deploy our suite on AWS. In this release, what we do is we are extending that support to include a number of key updates to our to the suite itself. Okay, when it comes to deployment on AWS. The first update is we are going to support multiple availability zones on AWS. So that means when you have 3 master nodes for running the suite, SMAX suite on AWS, all these 3 master nodes can be deployed in 3 separate availability zones. This ensures HA. Okay, so this ensures that the suite is highly available in case within AWS one AZ goes down, and at the same time it will improve performance. The other thing that we have done is we added support for application load balancer and network load balancer within which are native AWS services. So the application load balancer is used for inbound traffic from AWS, from external the traffic external to the suite coming into the suite, and it will be distributed across various master nodes. And then we have a network load balancer, which is used for traffic internal to the suite, which is used for traffic between or communication between master nodes and worker nodes. Okay, next slide. And there's few other items, minor items that we are doing. We are actually going to provide a GDPR white paper for SMAX, which will be provided post-GA. And then we will provide information. Sorry, we have also improved certain stability in certain scenarios. Like we have enhanced RabbitMQ stability, we have enhanced our troubleshooting scripts for X, as well as we have fixed some deployment issues with the SMAX marketplace deployment for SMAX. So we have invested quite a bit on the stability aspects for SMAX. Okay, I think that's it, Tanya. Back to you.
Thank you, Ankit. Right, we have a couple of other topics to follow: enterprise readiness and the update process. The first one being chat ops. So this was actually introduced in the February release, but I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about it at a high level before we talk about the enhancements. So I think when I'm talking to customers, I found that they're maybe not using it today with in coordination with service management, but as soon as they see the demonstrations and learn about our capabilities, something that they're very interested in. So the chat ops solution helps to provide visibility and collaboration across different teams. So bringing different teams together, let's say, to work on an incident. And these people aren't users in a SM system. They might be a CMS user, or they might be a monitoring user, and we can bring them together in this way, in this collaborative way, which helps decrease the time to resolve the issue and sort of promote that camaraderie. So that's the sort of the background on chat ops, and it's actually an ITOM platform capability. So it's something that's provided to us in the SMA team from our platform team, and they work on these cross-product use cases and provide them out of the box. And so in February, we provided the chat ops capability for SMA, and in this May release, we'll be enhancing it with some additional commands, and you can see them here in terms of the ability now to suggest solutions. So for example, you're in this Slack channel, which is what we're seeing on the right-hand side, which just happens to be a free chat ops tool that we use and certify. And so we can use some commands now to do things that would otherwise be done in the application. So suggesting a solution, or maybe searching for incidents that might be related to the incident that you're evaluating. And so the channel itself can be created automatically by identifying it as a major incident within SM. So you identify major incident, it's going to create this new chat ops channel and invite the relevant people. And there's some other commands, including help and the ability to link between two knowledge articles, and also some misspelling correction. So all in all, some nice new commands and some nice new usability features. Chat ops is available in the marketplace, and you can look there for additional information. There's also, I've linked a fairly recent white paper on chat ops, and I think it's really interesting, especially if you don't know a lot about it and wondering if this is something that could facilitate the collaboration across teams, and especially when we're thinking about other groups outside of the service management team. And I think the last area for us to talk about is some mobile enhancements. So again, adding on to our February release, where we introduced the iOS native mobile app. So it joined our Android native mobile app, and we just improved and enhanced the way that we do notifications. So having them to be native within the application themselves, and they're showing whether you're in the app or not, as well as a change to the dynamic form that's used for submitting the request, just to improve the performance and a bit of an enhanced layout. So if you're using the iOS mobile app, you'll want to be aware of those changes to communicate to your end users. The last area that we're going to go into, and I mentioned as a key theme for the release, is aggregation. And this is really more of a preview because, again, today's session was about giving you an end-to-end view of everything that's planned for the release, and then drilling down into these topics in our next sessions, and aggregation follows that. So I will give you a preview, though, and hopefully give you enough so that you're interested to come to this next session. So aggregation is a way for our customers to provide a single self-service portal experience for their end users, whether those services are being fulfilled in SMAX or being fulfilled in another system. And in this particular release, that other system is limited to Service Manager. So for a Service Manager customer that maybe has put in SMAX in another business unit, or maybe looking to do some migrations or some of those services over to SMAX, this might be an interesting capability for them. So you have a single portal experience. The end user is making a request, and they don't care, nor do they need to know where it's being fulfilled. And there's a new offering in the SMAX system called an aggregation offering. And we create it in SMAX and put in the relevant details there, and then link it or aggregate it from Service Manager. And that's the second screenshot that you can see there. We popped up a window showing us the offerings that are coming from Service Manager. So this aggregation is done a little differently than we've done it in the past in other solutions, but there are some really interesting advantages to doing it this way. One is certainly the end user experience, but that's true, I think, for our previous approaches, but in this particular approach is the ability to really better manage or govern those requests. So because there is a request in the SMAX system, we can now report on it just like we would a native offering from SMAX. And so it makes it easier for reporting or metrics or service level management. And again, we will talk more about this feature in the next release. I should add that the aggregation feature is being released in what we call a controlled way, and that is, it's fully supported and documented, but we are working with our early adopters together so that we can get some more feedback and make sure that this is a right fit for the scenario, because it is a little different from some of the other features that straight out of the box. We do have some time now for Q&A, and Steve or Ankit, maybe you can let me know if we have questions that need to be answered.
We did start to get a couple questions in the chat, but I believe we answered most of them in response on there, but we could.
And if anybody wants to come off mute. Yeah. I'll give that a sec. So let me go into the housekeeping area, and then we can circle back if there's if there are some questions that come up. And actually, I just want to go back here for a moment, and I'm going to call out that slide specifically. So again, this is where we started with the 4 key release themes for 2018.05 and the individual features underneath. Tried to give you a sense of the complete release and what new capabilities are coming, but then also obviously the release update process itself. In our next session, we'll be going through Studio and aggregation, and then also, as needed, the details on AWS and Azure in terms of the technical details or maybe some technical considerations for you to be thinking about. If you have other questions or things that you'd like us to cover in more detail, please either put them in the chat here or send them to me directly, and we'll see if we can factor that into our next session. Now, these release readiness webinars are happening during our practitioners forum time slot. Every 2 weeks we meet, and if we don't have enough time to cover these topics in the next session, then we can do it in a future session. So I'll go back to housekeeping, and then Steve, I did see a question pop in. Anything I need to pause for? Oh, it looks like Ankit might be answering that one. Okay, well, let me go into the exciting housekeeping. In the previous sessions, we've talked about this new idea form replacing the enhancement request process, and we're getting a lot of great activity there and some collaboration, which is exactly what it's intended to do. So folks are voting on the ideas that interest them most, and sometimes adding comments or adding more specific requirements, or even letting another customer know that something's already provided in the product. So that is wonderful. I appreciate your collaboration and your input there. As I mentioned in the past, that we were one of the first, well, I think we were the first to use this idea form within the ITOB platform, and now as though it's rolled out to all of the other groups. And so if you're leveraging other products or your colleagues are, they too now are using the idea forum. As part of that extended rollout, we actually merged in the other products from the SMA suite. So SMA SM and Asset Manager and ConnectIt are now included in this idea exchange. It does mean a little change to the way that you interact with it. So on the right-hand side here, you can see the ability to filter by those labels, and that's going to give you a filtered list, of course, and you can look at and just vote on those ideas for SMAX, for example. Now, we always recommend that you subscribe to notifications for the forum itself, but because of this change, I would say now to unsubscribe to the forum and instead subscribe to the label if you're interested in just those ideas. Of course, if you like the whole thing, then you'll want to keep your subscription at the exchange level. You might have also noticed throughout the session we've been using the short term of SMAX instead of SMAX for our long name of Service Management Automation X, and in fact that is a final decision. We didn't necessarily intend it to be shortened down to SMAX, but it certainly caught on like wildfire, and there's no stopping it now. So we've made an official decision to remove the hyphen. Again, Service Management Automation X is the actual name, but SMAX is what we're using for our short phrasing. And lastly, so we are finished with our release introduction, and we'll be making the recording available in the Practitioners Forum listing as we always do. So if you have colleagues or that weren't able to attend the session, they can listen to the recording from there. And in 2 weeks, we will get back together again to talk about the certain features in terms of the technical details. And once again, I'll make the offer for you to provide us some feedback on what else you would like to see covered there. And with that, we do have a couple of extra minutes, but mostly ending on time, which is great for these release readiness webinars. We often have to go over a couple of minutes, but thank you, Ankit and Steve, for your presentations, and thanks everybody for joining. We can hang on for a few minutes if you have any additional questions, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks.